So we just got done with YCS London last weekend, and there was 1,875 players in attendance, making it the largest Yu-Gi-Oh event ever hosted in the UK. This was also my first ever YCS, so my goal was to just have fun and use this as a learning experience to improve myself as a player. I've been playing the game since Cybernetic Horizon came out, so roughly about a year and a half-ish, and that was when Firewall Dragon was rampant as well as Isolde, and the format was based around Goki Extra Link. Not the funnest of formats to come into the game as a new player, but Cyber Dragon was a favourite of mine for a long time, and as soon as I heard about Mega Fleet, that is what I gravitated towards. Who cares if your opponent Extra Links you and gives you Ibli when you can just tribute over the Ibli for Cyber Dragon and pretty much break their board with a single Mega Fleet. So it's fair to say Cyber Dragons was my first ever actual deck. Over time this has evolved from Cyber Dragon Invoked to Cyber Orchest when Bardiche was still around up until Mermaid got banned, and now the deck I took to London, which was Trap, Stun, Control Cyber Dragons. What? Yes, I know, it's so different to the normal Cyber Dragon playstyle, but honestly it works really, really well. Opponents don't really know how to deal with it, and it doesn't care about Nibiru, it doesn't care about Super Poly, it doesn't actually lose to Mega Fleet, and I managed to end day 1 on a record of 5-3, which qualified me for day 2. I'll have my actual deck profile at the end of this video, but if you just want a quick look at the list, then I'll have that in the description for you as well if you don't fancy watching the full thing. So moving on to matchups, there wasn't any huge surprises, which I'm quite happy about. There was just a few little odd bits here and there. But round 1, I was against Pure Thunder Dragons. It's a fairly easy matchup. I ended up winning in time with a Super Poly to break his board and then just attack for game. Round 2, I went up against just your standard Altergeist build. Round 1, he won the die roll and snowballed, you know, as Altergeists do. Round 2, I went first and took the dub, and then round 3, he kind of bricked, so 2-0 to us. Round 3 is where I got my first taste of international top tables competition. All of the guy's cards were foreign, he was playing super quickly, not announcing phases or anything, and just pointing at his cards as if I know what they do, which wouldn't actually be a problem if I knew his deck, but he was playing Necros, and I have little to no experience with Necros, so I'm totally accepting of the loss because I was just not prepared for that matchup, but the fact that he was cheating is what makes me frustrated. He marked one of my sleeves pretty obviously with lead. I don't know how he did it, he must have had like pencil in his hand or something, and he was just attempting multiple illegal activations. Like I cracked down his Vanity's Ruler and he was still attempting to special summon, and he tried to claim that Unicorn negates Nova even though I special summoned him from the graveyard. It was just all round a very stressful experience that I'm definitely not ready for yet. Looking back, I should have called the judge right away as soon as I noticed he marked my sleeve, but other than that I just wanted out of that situation as quickly as I could, so I took the loss on the head. Round 4, I played against an interesting Danger Orchest build. So game 1, I go first and set all my back row, and he opens with Denko Sekka. This was totally unexpected and actually managed to win him the game. Game 2, I actually win, but during the game he plays System Down, which was totally unexpected. Like, I understand his reasoning for putting it in there, and it definitely worked in his favor, but wow. And then game 3 was a little bit of a grind game, but I managed to get the game into my favor with a Super Poly towards the end, but he was ahead on life points and time was called, so unfortunately, we lost that one. Round 5, I come up against Altergeists again, but this time, he's playing Shaddolls. He said he originally wanted to play Altergeist Invoked, but he forgot his cards, so he just threw in a Shaddol engine, and it seemed to work out pretty well for him. We sadly took the L here in game 3 just because we didn't open the cards we needed to deal with everything he had, which I'm totally fine with because it was a really fun match. It was very unexpected. This takes us to round 6 where I went up against Phantasm Spiral. This was a pretty easy match. Game 1 we went first and opened up with Mega Fleet plus Infinity and then Trap Trick and Heavy Storm Duster set. He tried to summon Mega Fleet using my own Mega Fleet, which you just can't do because it can't be used as fusion material, and Heavy Storm Duster did the rest, so it was an easy game 1. Game 2, he went first and he activated Prohibition, calling Heavy Storm Duster, and I actually did have Heavy Storm Duster in hand, but I also had Twin Twisters in hand. So yeah, we win. Round 7, the second last round of day 1, we went up against Luna Orchest. This whole match only lasted around 20 minutes. I can't remember how, but I smashed him 2-0. I'm pretty sure it was a combination of Super Poly and Chimera Tech Fortress, but we also got an OTK in there with Rampage Dragon, so yeah. This leaves us with round 8, the final round of the day. We're both 4-3 and we are playing for the day 2 spot. I'm against Salomon Great, and we end up 1-1, so we go to game 3. I set Duster and Scythe, and on his turn, I activate the Duster, targeting just my Scythe. But he realizes what's happening and then chains Cosmic Cyclone to banish the Scythe that I targeted, which I just thought was a really good play. I actually told him how impressed I was because I just didn't expect that to happen. And I then stole the game by Super Polying him halfway through his combo when he had 1 card left in his hand. So we went 5-3 and made it to day 2, which I'm really happy about. For day 2, however, I woke up at 6:30 in the morning for the event, and I was honestly just exhausted. I ran some numbers and figured that if I won all my matches and went X3, I still wouldn't even be in top cut, so I'm basically playing for the bubble, which is kind of pointless when you're exhausted. So instead, I played in the Mega Regional and ended up going 3-3. My first loss was mainly my fault because round 1 my opponent didn't show up until 6 minutes after time had started, and I didn't call a judge, so he won game 3 in time, which was a bit sad. He kept apologizing, but it's whatever. My second loss was also my fault for disrespecting heroes. It was in game 3 and I went first, and I had Infinity on board, and I had Trap Trick and Super Poly in hand. And I didn't think he would be able to kill me with all my negates, so I set Trap Trick instead of Super Poly. I used Infinity to negate a Stratos, and then I Trap Tricked for Imperm to stop Malicious Bane destroying everything I had, and he still managed to get to Trinity and Honest Neos and kill me. Finally, my third loss was against Simon He with his Sky Strikers. Obviously, he's a very good player, he's been playing for years, and yeah, I just stood no chance, to be honest. He Shark Cannoned my Scythe on my turn, which was pretty impressive. So overall, I had a really good time, and honestly, I learned a lot. I'm so used to playing in a casual environment, even just at regionals in Scotland, and that definitely showed itself. Like, if you want to play this game at the top level, you're not only going to have to be good and have a good deck, but you're also going to need to know how to call out your opponent and things like that. It's very interesting, and I'm sure this experience will definitely come in handy for the Yu-Gi-Oh! From Scratch series. So I think it's about time to get into the deck profile now. It's worth noting that with my build, you want to go first rather than second, as opposed to all the other trap builds. The problem with blind second is that you don't know if your opponent's going to make you go first or second for game 2. So optimizing the build to go first makes siding a lot easier. I also want to say a couple of my choices are very bad, and I'll go over that while I'm going through the list. So starting out here, we have 3 Cyber Dragon Core. This is your main normal summon. He'll search you any cyber spell or trap. Most of the time, you're going to link him off for Almirage so you can play Infinity, especially if you have Super Poly in hand, because Almirage plus any link monster gets you Violet Chimera, and sometimes depending on your hand, you won't summon him at all, because if you can't get to Infinity, but you have decent back row, you'll prefer to not give away any information until you can get to Infinity. Next up, we have 3 Cyber Dragon Herz. Herz is very good for the grind game, as you're constantly recycling your Cyber Dragons in the grave. Herz is also sometimes a better normal summon than Core if you're having to play around a negate, because Core's effect is mandatory, so if they can negate that effect and destroy Core, you're kinda screwed. Next up, we have 2 Galaxy Soldier, which is perfect. You don't want to brick on it, and you can search it whenever you need it. Galaxy Soldier plus Herz is your main access to Infinity, so if you can get both of them cards in your hand, you're good to go. There's so many different 2-card combinations to get to Galaxy Soldier plus Herz, so Infinity is actually quite consistent. 1 Nachster and 1 OG Cyber Dragon, you don't really want to see them in your opening hand because they don't do much, so you just search them when you need them. And then 1 Scythe for Sanctum. 3 Emergency, obviously being your main searcher, it can search any Cyber Dragon monster. Someone actually judgmented my Cyber Emergency at London, so I was able to just grab it back to my hand and activate it again while they paid half their life points. Next up, we have 3 Super Poly, obviously the card's busted. 3 Called by the Grave, so we have an extra layer of protection to get to our Infinity combo. It's also just very good this format in general because of things like Gazelle, Multifaker, and all the Orchest pieces. And then we have our searchable Cyber Repair Plant and Cyberload Fusion. Quite often I would side the Fusion out if I knew I wasn't against a back row deck. Moving on to the traps, obviously we have 3 Trap Trick, essentially giving us 6 copies of whichever card we need. 3 Cybernetic Overflow. If you're in a grind game, you want to search this quite quite often, and if you open it, then you can take your opponent by surprise, which is also really nice. You can also pop it with your own duster and then chain it, so when you destroy it with duster, you can search for any cyber spell or trap, including itself, which is also just broken. 3 infinite impermanence. It's good going first and second. It can help you play around. There can be only one. You can search off trap trick. It's just really good. It can't be called by the graved. Most importantly, it has Cyber Dragon Infinity in the artwork, so you just have to play 3. Next up, we have 3 Heavy Storm Duster. Coupled with Trap Trick, you basically have 6 outs to back row decks, which is just great. 3 Crackdown. This card alone won multiple games. Stealing your opponent's Plasma or Vanity Ruler and locking them under their own effect is just so dumb because it doesn't negate continuous effects. And then finally, 3 Sanctum rounds out our 40 card deck. You don't want to shotgun it in their standby phase because if they run Impermanence, they can just Impermanence your Scythe, so you want to wait until they at least play a card before you activate it. Resolving Scythe just by itself can win you games, especially against the likes of Salaman Great. And then against things like Draco, where they're constantly popping your back row, multiple Sanctums doesn't matter either because you're plussing off that as well. So I feel like the main deck right now is pretty much perfect. I wouldn't change anything, so we'll go on to the extra deck. A lot of it is quite self-explanatory and almost every card came up. The only change I would make is Masquerena. It 100% needs to be changed to the BLS link. I did swap it out for the Mega Regional and man, what a difference. Some decks just can't out it. Like, I kid you not, I played against Pure Endemians and he genuinely decked out in game 2 because he had no out to it. The original theory behind Masquerena was that if I do Super Poly, then I have no zones to make Infinity, so I needed a generic link just to link off and get some zones. So yeah, even with Crackdown especially, the BLS link is just a much better option. The other interesting choice you see here is Constellar Pallades, which actually won me a game. So with Scythe being a level 5 light monster, if you brick on like a single Galaxy Soldier, you can still get him out and then make Pallades, or if you Super Poly, you can tribute over the Super Poly target and then make Pallades for interruption. A cool thing about this deck is you don't really link summon that often, so Phantasme isn't really a problem. But yeah, moving on to the side deck where a lot of the choices just aren't great. We have 3 summon limit, which is fine. If you flip it at the right time, you basically win. 2 copies of Get Out, which I thought would be quite good, especially against Thunder Dragons, but it just never came up. You run so many preventative cards that they never get to a position where Get Out is actually useful. I would definitely swap this out for Compulse. 3 copies of Nibiru is fine. We got 2 Pancratops, which helps out there can be only 1. 3 Twin Twisters, which is great, and then 2 Red Reboot, which also doesn't work. Because the deck lacks the aggression and the OTK potential, Red Reboot is essentially just giving them extra resources to work with. And that, my dudes, is the end of the list and pretty much the end of this video. Please let me know what you think of things like this, because I know it's not Yu-Gi-Oh! From scratch, and most of you are here for Yu-Gi-Oh! From scratch, so like, it's, Next episode is coming out on Thursday, episode 6, and then episode 7 should be our first regional. You heard it here first, Yu-Gi-Oh! From scratch.